Hello, it's Frank Weber again at It's a Frankly Hairy podcast. Welcome to the forest. On this show, I try to bring issues that are not really out in the open to light and try to put a spin on them in some way and hopefully you laugh and learn along the way. Today I wanted to talk about, it sounds kind of like a boring topic, the topic of stress and anxiety. I'm not a learned expert on stress and anxiety. I'm not a trained psychologist or anything like that. But I have a lot of experience with it in my life, both personally and professionally. And it's a big problem in our society today. And I'll tell you a couple of stories about that and then maybe give you a couple of examples. I would say it's kind of at an epidemic level in our world today, or at least in this country, in the United States. If you don't know already, I am a licensed and practicing dentist, at least part-time, and there's a lot of stress and anxiety in that profession. A lot of it comes from the patients. I get that they don't want to see me or have me work on them most of the time. Totally get that. I'm empathetic toward that, if you will. But a lot of them bring a lot of dental anxiety or its worst counterpart, phobia, to the chair. And that in turn makes me kind of anxious and nervous. I can give them something to take the edge off and do my treatment, but then they never really get treated for the cause of their anxiety or phobia. And then, you have to do that every visit, give them something to take the edge off. It never gets treated. I, of course, am not in a position to treat their mental health in that regard, and I in turn get anxious myself. And then, of course, being a worrier and maybe an overthinker on a lot of things, if you haven't figured that out already on this show, causes me a lot of anxiety of my own, and obviously it's not very good for that stress and the things that it leads to: heart disease, premature aging, all those things. Anyway, so I just wanted to give you that personal story and whatnot. Today in America, there's a lot of things to get potentially stressed over, and people have a hard time relaxing. I know one of them is we're in election year 2024, and there's a lot of concern about how that's going to go down, or maybe more importantly, the aftermath of it. It seems like half the country, whoever that may be, is not going to be satisfied with the results, and concerns about violence afterwards and things of that nature. I feel like we chase after many things in this country. One of them is truly the almighty dollar. As I've said before on this show, I'm a capitalist. I'm all for people making money and making as much as they can, but we need to somehow have some more balance in our lives and get back to priorities and perspectives on a lot of things, get back to our families and faith and focus more on what's really important. I was having a discussion just last night with my brother Tom. I really think I should bring Tom on sometime as a guest on this podcast. I think that would be a really great conversation. I would even plan out the show and get questions ready for him and everything. I think I should have him on sometime. I have to ask him to do that. But he's been to Europe, whereas I have not. And I used to be kind of down on Europe as being kind of maybe a little more progressive even than the United States, and in some sense, and that was kind of troubling to me if if you go a little bit too far one way or the other. But he's traveled around Europe, places like Germany and England and Ireland, and talks about their cultures a little bit and how, in terms of work, a lot of times they have a very set number of hours during the day, like 9 to 5 or 9 to 4, something like that. And instead of rushing home to take the kids to soccer practice or go to their game or some other activity where we're always so busy and stressed and sometimes speeding in traffic, causing traffic problems. There's those traffic problems again that really drive me crazy. A lot of times after work, they'll just go and hang out at the pub in Europe, and they're very laid back, very relaxed. And people talk about work-life balance here, but then it sounds kind of like they have more of a work-life balance over there. And I mean, we can talk about differences in work ethics and things of that nature and whether that contributes to it or not. I know there's examples. Spain they take some kind of nap in the afternoon. I don't think they call it a siesta. I think that's from Mexico. But they have a nap and they have a snack, tapas and all those things in the middle of the day. And, maybe that affects their work schedule a little bit. I know France, they have several weeks of vacation a year. I don't know. I mean, we live to work in this country, but I think it kind of contributes to our madness right now. And like I said, stress and anxiety, if you can't get it under control, it's going to eat you alive. And I've had to deal with a lot lately, and a lot of things that I worry about are really not all that big. My wife knows this a lot. I'm always worried. I've been in this house for 13 years, and we've got some appliances that are probably getting a little bit older and reaching the end of their useful life, at least per the experts, and I worry about having to replace them. One of the least fun things that I have to do is go to Home Depot or wherever and buy a new appliance. It just totally pisses me off. But unfortunately, that is life, and none of these machines really last forever. But if that's really all I have to worry about, then that's really not that much at all. And then, of course, I get stressed as well about my cars and trucks and things like that, and getting older and maintenance and having to repair them. And a lot of times lately driving in traffic, and, obviously, I get concerned about goals and dreams in life as well. And I know for me personally, I just need to kind of tone it down and try to relax and take it easy, even though I know the environment these days in the United States is not easy to make that happen. Anyway, before I close out the show, you notice I say we a lot. It's just a crazy habit that I have. I wanted to briefly talk about a few subjects that may be causing us anxiety. I already had mentioned, of course, the 2024 election coming up in November, I guess less than 6 months from now. I could go into really great depth on this, and I may do that in a later podcast. And I may have even said this before, but you can take a lot of anxiety and worry off yourselves if you go ahead and research the candidates, get data from a lot of different sources, try to weigh them all together, and then vote your values. That's what I would hope and pray that everybody would do come this November. So many different things that could be said about that. Election years used to be kind of fun and something to look forward to, but now there's just so much fighting and animosity. And like I said, there was who's going to accept the results and then not accept the results, and are they going to act out afterwards, and a lot of different bullshit and whatnot that we never used to see in this country. That may be more concerning than what actually happens in the election this year. Another topic that I would bring up, and I always hear Joe Rogan and a few others talking about this topic with some regularity, is a concern over artificial intelligence. I, to be honest with you, would plead a lot of ignorance with AI. It just, from what I've seen so far, it just seems like kind of a supercomputer. But then they start talking about like this guy, this Neuralink thing that Elon Musk put in this guy, and apparently he can control the computer cursor with his finger now, or some crazy stuff like that. And people talk about the machines, self-discovering themselves and taking over the world. And I think that was the plot line of one of those Terminator movies, if I remember correctly. I don't get it. And like I said, maybe I don't know enough about it, but it just seems like a little bit stronger version of a computer that has to be programmed by humans. So I don't understand exactly how it might take over the world. What a lot of people don't talk about, like I didn't hear Joe talk about on his show, a lot of people were very disappointed with Google's Gemini AI thing that they rolled out a few months ago, when it was, people were asking it about historical figures, and they all turned out to be black or women or minority or some historically inaccurate bullshit like that. That kind of program doesn't seem like something that would take over the world. It was, instead of AI, it should probably be called AS, for artificial stupidity. So do we really need a computer program for that? Because there's a lot of stupid going on in the world right now. Anyway, the point is, I don't think that what Gemini rolled out would necessarily take over the world, just from what I've seen so far. But again, I could be wrong in that regard. What's another topic that could be causing anxiety these days? For some reason, I'm always concerned. For those of you who don't know, I went to school at Texas Tech, and over the years, being a follower of athletics there has had its trials and troubles. And we've had a couple of programs get really good and really competitive. And since we're in the spring and in the month of May, this year the baseball team looks like they have no real sense of fundamentals, and coaching is not really present, I would argue. They seem like a team in decline if they don't make any changes. And I know this story may have limited interest for you, and I don't really plan to talk very in particular about sports teams and players or people or anything like that. I usually talk about them in generalities, but they appear to be on a decline. But maybe what's more concerning is kind of the direction of Division I athletics, and a lot of the politics and a lot of the issues that exist there with things like name, image, likeness, and the transfer portal. College football is in a real issue with all the realignment stuff. By the way, I guarantee you there's going to be more realignment talk come this July or so. It happens every year because I think ESPN wants a big super conference of only the big boys that are the only ones who are going to count, especially in football, is what I think. But a lot of anxiety there. I've always thought sports, from my viewpoint and vantage point, we're always about competition, but there's so much in big boy sports like Division One, at the Division One level, because so much about money and facilities, arms races, and the other things that we've talked about of late. It's really crazy. It's a hard time to be a fan. In contrast, and I think I'll end the show on this point, I live in Canyon, Texas, which is, about an hour and a half north of Lubbock, where Texas Tech is. There's a Division II school here who used to be a rival of Tech many years ago. They used to be known as West Texas State, now known as West Texas A&M, because A&M wanted to put the name on all their schools down there. But anyway, I would make this argument that since they're Division II, they're a much smaller school, they don't have as much budget, and they don't get as much revenue from their athletics. That's a big drawback, but from a competitive standpoint, if they can win games and take care of business, which some of their teams really can do, like softball and basketball and some others like that, there's really not a lot of extra issues and politics and, like I said, shenanigans to have to deal with to win a championship. And, as long as you can put your best foot forward, that's what really counts. But, Texas Tech, on the other hand, where I went to school, they've been left behind in the Big 12 conference, which I personally never thought was a really good conference. But now they're losing Texas and OU, and as much as we dislike them, that conference has lost a lot, and I don't really know what the future is in store for that. So there's a lot of anxiety and stress that's related to that. And there's so many things that we can do, by the way, to relax and take that edge off in a natural way, but for some reason some of those things seem to be elusive to a lot of us. I have some ideas, and we'll probably talk about those in another podcast. But anyway, that's about all I have to say for this episode of It's a Frankly Harry podcast. This is Frank Weber. I'll see you next time in the forest. Please, by all means, I don't want to sound like I'm begging or groveling or anything like that, but please tell your friends and family about this show and about my Substack site, which is called Life's Comedic Odyssey. I write articles that usually come out every week, and they're kind of like this show. I try to be funny but talk about deep, hidden things as well. So please check that out. Hit subscribe for that, as well as for this podcast. So until next time, we'll see you back again in the forest. Take care till then. Bye. Love you.